Hello, once again, everyone. I'm your host, Ray Shasho. Welcome to another edition of Interviewing the Legends brought to you by the Rockstar Chronicles Series 1, my new book featuring over 45 intimate conversations with the greatest music legends the world will ever know, available now at bookbaby.com and amazon.com. Well, despite all the traumas and uncertainties of 2020, it turned out to be a very busy year for David Bainbridge, as well as producing the epic 17 CD Book of Iona box set celebrating the 30th anniversary of Iona. Dave contributed in various degrees to new albums. However, in between all this activity, Dave was also taking time to put together the concept and music for his fourth solo album, To the Far Away. The album's 71 plus minutes of music draws upon the Celtic, progressive rock, and classical influences that have permeated Dave's music since he started composing at the age of 11, and which he honed during his years with Iona and through his previous solo and many collaborative releases. Please welcome English guitarist, keyboardist, arranger, composer, who performs with progressive Celtic rock band Iona, Celestial Fire, Lifesigns, and of course, Strawbs since 2015. Dave Bainbridge to Interviewing the Legends, live from Baltimore.
Yes, hi Ray. Yes, just fascinating to know that you actually came from here as well originally and have a wife of the same name.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was born in Baltimore. Yeah, many moons ago. Cool town, especially for rock music and progressive rock music.
It is actually. It's one of the
Yeah.
things I really love about it, the music scene here. Well, certainly pre-pandemic. I mean, it's gradually coming back, but we go out to loads of gigs on a regular basis.
Good.
In bars and some good theaters and all kinds of stuff. So,
I want to first we're going to talk about your new album, which I love, by the way. It's incredible.
excellent. Thank you.
First of all, your wedding was supposed to be a Prog wedding.
Yes, very much.
You're supposed to have some very key people at your wedding. I guess Neil Morris was one of them, right? It was supposed to be at your wedding, and because of the pandemic, I can't talk today. It didn't work out. So, what happened there exactly?
Yeah. So, my wife and I, she was my fiance then.
Right.
Back in March 2020, I was just finishing a tour in the UK with Lifesigns, and the following week was due to fly out to Miami and then to go on Cruise to the Edge, which is a prog rock themed cruise around the Caribbean with Lifesigns. And we all knew kind of the COVID was kicking off a bit, but literally the day after the tour, Donald Trump announced that the US was closing its borders completely. So I couldn't make it over. Basically, myself and Sharon were separated for 8.5 months.
Jeez, that's a long time, man.
Yeah, and we actually came across this great Facebook group called Love Is Not Tourism, and it was set up by a couple who were in the same boat as us. In that one was from the US and one was from the UK, and they had found a way of getting into the US if you came from a third country that wasn't on the US's exclusion list for COVID. So after about 5 or 6 months apart, we realized that if I went to either I think Turkey, Bermuda, Bahamas, or Mexico, one of those countries, and stayed there for 15 nights, then I could legally be allowed to get into the US. So eventually in October 2020, and this was before the vaccines, so it was quite sort of scary in a way. I got a flight from London to Frankfurt, then Frankfurt to Mexico City.
Oh my God.
Mexico City to Cancun, and stayed in Cancun for like 14 nights in the hurricane season. So there was a hurricane just about 2 weeks before I got there, there was like a Category 4 hurricane went through and did a lot of damage. And while I was there, a Category 2 hurricane, the epicenter of which was Cancun, went through, and I had a bit of a scary night. My apartment, it was on the 3rd floor, but the windows kind of blew in, and just the rain was kind of horizontal. So I spent about 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the night with a mop and brush trying to get all the rain out.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, eventually on the 3rd of November, which was the election day, I made it to Washington, D.C. and met up with Sharon, and we were married the following month. But it was like a COVID ceremony with just 5 of us there.
Right.
Sharon's mum and the pastor and a friend who was taking photos. But the initial idea was we were going to get married on Cruise to the Edge.
Right.
Neil Morse was going to be officiating the ceremony because he's a pastor, as well as being a great musician and friend. My friend John Young from Lifesigns, and he's played with Scorpions and Asia and all kinds of people. He was going to be my best man. The head bridesmaid was Percy Jones from Brand X's wife, Joyce, who'd also made this lovely tiara for Sharon and for the bridesmaids. So, and a lot of our friends in the prog rock community were on the boat. So it was going to be a real celebration, but sadly none of that happened. Although we're going to be on Cruise to the Edge again. It's finally happening in May this year. So we're thinking about maybe doing like a retrospective some kind of celebration at least. And Neil's going to be there.
Oh, good.
So he's said, whatever you do, I'll be happy to help out. And John Young will be there again, and Percy's wife, Joyce. So it could still kind of happen. So.
Well, you passed the test. You were separated for 8.5 months. You had to end up flying to Frankfurt, Mexico City to Cancun. Then finally you got to see your future bride.
Yeah.
I mean, you passed the test with flying colors, so you deserve to be married for a very, very long time. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. Yes. Yeah.
Let's talk about the new album. Okay.
Yeah.
To the Far Away. It's a brilliant album, man.
Thank you.
The lyrics are incredible. And did you write all the lyrics to this?
No, I collaborated with a poet.
Okay.
She's from Canada, but she's married to a friend of mine in Dublin. She lives in Dublin, in Ireland. She's called Lynn Caldwell.
Right.
And so when I started working on the album during the pandemic, and ideas started formulating for the concept, which was, a lot to do with my thoughts of, being separated by the Atlantic Ocean from Sharon, and a whole load of other things to do with the pandemic, but kind of in a hopeful way. I'd been reading some of her blogs, and she put some of her poems on her blogs, and I just loved the way that she used the descriptive language. So I thought it would be great to collaborate with her on the tracks, on the vocal tracks. So in some instances mostly I had an idea of what I wanted to say in the track, and occasionally I'd have 1 or 2 lines written, and I'd send her all this, and then she'd kind of filter what I sent her and come up with her own thing. And I was just hugely thrilled with the lyrics she came up with. And there's one of her poems as well on one track that's Sally, who sings, does a spoken word version of it. But it really encapsulated what I was hoping she would get, with the whole concept of the album.
It's a beautiful album, and if you're a fan of Steel Eye Span, Blackmore's Night, and you mentioned Tubular Bells, right, and Michael Oldfield a little bit,
yes,
referring to the album as well.
Yes. Well, I think I heard Tubular Bells when I was about 13, and that was a real revelation. Hearing someone who could come up with these incredible layers of music all on his own, and from that point, really, I really wanted to be that person, and come up with multi-layered music using lots of different instruments. And that kind of became my path, really. And on the new album, I play guitars and keyboards, but I also play mandolin and bouzouki, and one or two other things. But I realized that there's certain things I just can't do very well. So like drums and bass and Irish pipes. So all those instruments are covered by my friends. And
sure.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of Game of Thrones as well, which I am, you're going to love the music because it's kind of Game of Thrones in a way. So some of my favorite tracks, of course, Seagazer is a beautiful track. The voices. I mean, you've got. I want to mention the voices. Is it Sally Minier?
Sally Minier, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Which is the daughter of Carrie Minier of Gentle Giant, which I'm a big fan of.
Yes, yeah. Kerry and I have been friends for more than 30 years. When we originally met through a mutual acquaintance and just hit it off. And we actually had a jam together soon after we met, which was quite good fun, but kind of didn't lead anywhere. But we just stayed friends with the family, and I'd often stay if Iona, my band, were playing near where he lives in Birmingham in England. I'd usually stay at his house. And I met Sally. I think Sally was about 17 when I first met her, and she was just in her last year at school, about to go on a music production course. So a few years after that, she got the gig doing the main vocals in Michael Flatley's Lord of the Dance.
Lord of the Dance,
which is the follow-up to Riverdance. And I remember Kerry playing me this really grainy video of her singing some of the songs from that on stage somewhere. And I'd never heard her sing before, although I'd met her. I didn't realize how amazing her voice was. This really pure voice. And she was singing in Irish Gaelic on these songs, which was also really great. And it is a language I've always loved the sound of. So we started working together as a duo actually in about 2013. And since then, we've done lots of gigs as a duo, and she's the lead singer in my band, Celestial Fire. Just seemed the right person to get to sing the lead female vocals on this album.
Oh, she's got a gorgeous voice. She really does.
Yeah, incredible. And she's the most lovely person. The whole family are just great. Kerry and Leslie.
Yeah.
They're just fantastic people.
I've had Derek on the show, Derek Schulman.
Yes. I've not met the Shulman brothers, although I know Gary Green very well, and Malcolm Mortimer, who was the original drummer. We're friends. So, but Gentle Giant were another huge influence, actually. Cool. And I was fortunate to see them live twice.
Really?
I was in my mid-teens. And again, what I liked about their music was the way they combined acoustic instruments and electric instruments. And kind of had influences ranging from like Renaissance to medieval music and rock, and that kind of became a template as to how I'd approach my own writing as well with Iona and on my solo albums. So,
I don't think anybody sounds like Gentle Giant. They've got their own sound. Nobody can, duplicate their whole history there. It's impossible.
No. I mean, very much an English sounding band as well. Kerry, I remember the track On Reflection and first hearing that. And it's, at the time I was at college studying Baroque music and classical music, and realized that was a form called a fugue, where you have certain themes that kind of overlap and then reoccur and that. And that was the first time I'd ever heard anyone do that in a kind of rock band format. And it's really hard to do. Kerry went to the Royal Academy and studied composition. So he's really got his composing chops. They're really right up there. That's why
I like prog music. Very intricate, very intelligent music. I mean, anybody can write "Baby, Baby," "Love You, Sweetheart," all this stuff, which I hate. And I'm noticing now the lyrics of Led Zeppelin aren't that fantastic. Besides a few other songs, few songs, but there's a lot of baby baby going on, oh babe, and this and that with Led Zeppelin. And it's
Yeah,
kind of turning me off lately, even though I was a big Zeppelin fan,
yeah. Funnily
Luckily their
enough,
music was good,
yeah, just on Sunday, we were in Washington DC at the weekend, and
Yeah.
coming back, we tuned into a radio station, and they played "Whole Lot of Love,"
Right.
which is the first time I'd heard it for years. And yeah, the lyrics are a bit
Oh my
questionable,
gosh.
but the sound of the band is, I mean, they were just fantastic. I just
Yeah.
loved that.
Well, that's it. They're
But
a good rock band,
yeah,
They've always been a really good rock band, but they did kind of rip off a lot of people.
yes, that's true. I mean,
You know?
at the time when I used to love listening to them, my first album was Led Zeppelin 1, and I think the second album was Led Zeppelin 2. So
Yeah.
I never really paid much attention to the lyrics or where the music came from. And it was years later when I started playing with lots of blues musicians that I kind of realized that they'd taken bits from various.
Exactly. From the old blues guys
Yeah.
and the Small Faces. They took a lot from the Small Faces.
Ah,
The Small Faces
yeah.
came, I mean, they should have been a lot more well known than they were, because they were way ahead of their time. The Steve
Yeah.
Marriott, the Steve Marriott band.
Yeah, I did a gig with Molly Marriott, Steve's
Oh,
daughter,
really?
about
Yeah.
5 years ago. She's
Huh.
got an incredible voice.
Really? I need to get her
Yeah.
on the show.
You should, yeah. She's
Yeah.
fantastic and writes some really great songs.
Right.
Yeah.
I heard she was out there.
Yeah.
Another voice on your album it's Ian. Is it Hornell or Hornell?
Ian Hornell.
Hornell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another good voice on the album. They
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was looking to have both male and female lead vocalists on the album,
Right.
particularly because of the theme of separation, and I thought, that would be kind of portraying the two characters in a way. And I'd remembered that Sally had mentioned she'd been at college with this guy called Ian, who she still kept in touch with, and she said, "Oh, he's got the most fantastic voice." So there was one person I was thinking of for the album who couldn't do it because he was busy doing other stuff. But then I remembered this guy that Sally had mentioned, and checked him out. And Ian, I mean, he's first of all, he's a singer-songwriter, and his songs are fantastic. But he's got quite a musical pedigree. He's now the lead singer with 10cc.
Yeah.
He sings with Jeff Lynne's ELO.
Exactly.
If you Google the Jeff Lynne's ELO's, I think it was the Hyde Park concert from about 3 years ago. He's singing on that. And then he was on tour with Anderson, Wakeman, and Rabin recently, playing bass. Yeah, he's an incredible musician. Yeah, he was depping for Lee Pomeroy on I think the UK leg of their tour. But as soon as I heard his voice and his range, he's got this great range and a very emotional quality to his voice. I knew he'd be the right person, and it was great to work with him on the album.
Yeah, you've got some great musicians on this album, and of course you, who can do everything. You're a great guitar player and keyboardist. It's
I blame my parents, because my dad was a my dad was a guitarist and banjo player and singer, and my mum played the accordion and the organ. So I kind of inherited a bit from both of them, really. But it meant that, like, when I left college, I had to buy a huge van to transport all the guitar gear and the keyboards around. So it was a blessing and a curse in a way.
Do you have a Moog?
No, well, I used to use a Mini Moog years ago, but now it's mainly software instruments.
Right.
So I've got a software version of something called Sample Moog, which is samples from various Moog instruments, which I actually used on some of the lead synth sounds on the album.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite tracks: "Girl in the Magical Sky," awesome guitar, beautiful voices, love the piano, beautiful track. Another favorite, an epic track, probably could be my favorite track on the album, is "Ghostlight."
Thanks. Yeah, this was inspired by a photo that my friend Chris Curran, he's the lighting designer for Steve Hackett.
Okay.
Who was with him, and it's right at the beginning of the pandemic in March 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him posting this photo on Facebook, and it was a picture of a single light on a stage, and the view was from the stage into an empty auditorium. And something I didn't know, but he said that apparently many theatres leave a light on the stage when the performance is finished for the day, and it's
Cool.
symbolic of the fact that the performance will return, the following day.
Oh, wow.
But obviously, it took on added significance because, like for 18 months, theatres were closed in the UK,
Right.
and Chris was out of a job all that time until Steve started touring again just last September. So I just liked that image and kind of constructed the track around that, really. The fact that it was almost like a tribute to all those people, backstage people, who really don't get the recognition they deserve, like the sound guys, the lighting guys, the carpenters on sets, the stage managers, producers, all those kind of people, because they were all particularly hit by the pandemic. I could go back to my house and just write and contribute to other people's recordings, so that wasn't really much different from what I normally do. But with no touring, there was this vast swathe of backroom people who just had nothing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have a track that really was dedicated to them and acknowledged their contribution.
Exactly. Yeah, the guys in Foreigner raised money for those guys. They did some kind of campaign.
Yeah,
to raise money. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, Steve Hackett also did that, and Marillion guys did that for their crew.
Yep.
Yeah, which is really great.
Yeah, I just had Steve from Marillion on the show, and I had Steve Hackett on the show, and I had Nad Sylvan. All the Prog guys. I get stuck interviewing a lot of Prog guys because I love that kind of music, So.
Yes, I think I was born at a disadvantage, being called Dave rather than Steve as far as playing Prog guitar.
Exactly. There's so many Steves. Oh my God.
Steve
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, another favorite. I've interviewed everybody from Yes, including Chris Squire and Rick. The only guy I haven't done is Steve Howe. I guess he's a little tougher to get,
Yeah, he was. I met him back in 1993 because when I was in Iona at the time, we were working on our third album.
Right.
And our bassist at the time was Nick Beggs from Kajagoogoo, and played with Steve Hackett and Steve Wilson.
Exactly.
But at the time, he was working with Steve Howe on I think it was an orchestral Yes album or something to do with Yes. So he'd mentioned to Steve about Iona. So Steve was kind of willing to do a guest spot on it. So
very cool.
Yeah, I went to see Steve on a gig he was playing not far from where I lived, and we had a chat about it afterwards. About him playing some 12-string guitar on this Iona album, Beyond These Shores. Yeah. But unfortunately, as it turned out, his involvement with the orchestral Yes album meant that he wasn't free, sadly. So that would have been interesting. Yeah. Well, it's never too late. No, that's true. Yeah. I didn't have a 12-string. I play a lot of 12-string now. So I've got a really good one. So. But yeah, it would be interesting. But actually, I've just finished an album with Jeff Downs from Yes. Oh yeah, I had Jeff on the show as well. Nice guy. Yeah, he's great. Yeah, we met. I think it was about 4 years ago. 3 years ago on Cruise to the Edge. Right. I'd been wanting to meet him because I'd known that we had the same piano teacher. Oh wow! Incredibly, yeah. Yeah, we both went to Leeds Music College, but he was there a few years before I was. But we had this teacher called Brian Layton, who was a fantastic jazz piano player, really amazing. So we had a great chat about the old days of Leeds College of Music, and I found this cassette tape with Brian's playing on it that I sent to Jeff, which he really loved.
How cool is it to go to Cruise to the Edge and just mingle with all these players and then ask them to play on your album? You know, I mean, they're all there, you know?
I just love it. I'd never been on a cruise prior to joining the Strawbs, and then we did the Moody's cruise.
Yep.
And then I did Cruise to the Edge with actually Fernando Perdomo.
Yeah, I know Fernando.
Yeah. And then Lifesigns. And I just love it. It's you just get to hang out with people, you know, and there's no barrier. I mean, some of the big stars, if they want to, can kind of stay separated, but mostly the musicians and the fans just mingle in the cafes and chat. And
very cool.
Yeah, so it's been brilliant. I've got to meet a lot of my heroes on there. So
yeah, Fernando just did a thing with Carmine at Peace. They did a project together.
Yeah. Well, my sister was a massive Vanilla Fudge fan. She was 9 years older than me, and so when I was like 8 and 9, I was listening to all her Vanilla Fudge albums, and I just loved the organ. The sound of the organ on there was a big inspiration in me wanting to play electric keyboards.
Big influence on Deep Purple too.
But interestingly, my sister passed away sadly.
Very sorry.
23 years ago.
Oh man!
But on the anniversary of the day she died,
I
was on the Moody Blues cruise, and Vanilla Fudge were playing that day. And
really?
Yeah, neither of us had ever seen them live, and it was almost like, you know, it's like this preordained thing. It was like a gift from God almost. You know, her favorite band were there, and I was listening to them on the anniversary of her death.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was a real thrill.
You know, my brother's like 8 years older than me, so the same thing happened to me. He had all these albums. He had the Hendrix albums and the Beatles and everything. So I learned a lot from his albums. You know, especially the Hendrix period, because he saw Hendrix in concert. And,
it's interesting because my sister had all the Beatles and Hendrix albums, and actually when she was 17, she got a gig playing in an all-girl band, the Ivy Benson show band, and she went off with them touring German air bases, American air bases in Germany.
Yeah,
it was in 1968 and 69, and Jimi Hendrix turned up at the sound check of one of their gigs.
Wow.
Ivy introduced Maureen to her. Maureen was the lead singer and keyboard player.
Very cool.
And they asked Jimmy if they could play a song for him, and he chose a song called "Puppet on a String" I think it was by Cloda Rogers. It was the Eurovision Song Contest winner from that year. So a really kind of bland pop song, which is quite strange. But so Maureen sang that for him.
Wow, that's a great story.
Yeah. But she was a huge Hendrix fan, and so I was listening to all his albums from a really early age.
Exactly.
And again, a huge influence on my playing.
You've got a couple of instrumentals on this album as well. Rain and Sun, beautiful instrumental. Love it. Night Falls.
As the Night Falls.
As the Night Falls, that's how you end the album with, which is a perfect ending to the album. And then Ian spotlights his voice on To Gain the Ocean. That's where he really shines.
Yes, I mean, that's the most overt kind of love song, I suppose, on the album. And I had the line 3,000 miles across the ocean, 3,000 miles across the sea, thinking about, because that was kind of the distance between where I was in England and Baltimore, where Sharon was. So as that song goes on, I wanted the sound to be kind of reflective of the sea engulfing everything. So it kind of comes to this crescendo and then dies off. But Ian's voice on that was really great.
Oh, and gorgeous.
Towards the end he improvises and stretches out a bit, which I really loved.
I made a mistake. The album actually closes with Something Astonishing. That was the closing track, which was a fantastic ending. It was, suitable for the album to end that way. It was beautiful.
That track, I've always loved English hymn music, and I think I had a conversation with Jeff Downs about this. We were talking about the difference between the sound of American progressive rock and the sound of English progressive rock,
Right.
Which does have a distinctive sound. And I think we both agreed that a lot of it was down to the fact that when we were kids at school, like every day you'd have an assembly where all the school gathered and sing these hymns that were written in the 19th century, late 19th century, with traditional hymn tunes that had harmonies that were very, very English sounding, using certain inversions of chords. And I think that was an influence on a lot of prog musicians, just probably unconsciously. But actually Chris Squire and I'm not sure if Jeff was, but John Young from Lifesigns, Chris and John were both choristers in cathedral choirs. So that kind of choral traditions kind of seeped into the harmonic language, I think, of a lot of the progressive rock, like bands like Yes and Genesis and that.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder if British prog musicians realize how important the Brits are to prog music. Sometimes they just brush it off. They're I don't know, I guess they're humble, I guess, but the Brits, to me, invented prog music. It's in your DNA from years back. You can't help it. Like you were mentioning, it's in your DNA. That kind of music's in your DNA,
Yes. And also I think certainly some bands more than others, you can hear strands of like traditional folk music in progressive rock. And some people like Mike Oldfield, I suppose it's more overt, but there's all these strands that I think came together to create this fairly unique sound in the 1970s.
Nobody does it better than the Brits. I mean, I'll give bands like Kansas a lot of credit. Yes. I never knew in a million years that a band from Kansas can produce prog music, but they did, and they did a good job. But like I said, it's in your DNA. I mean, you guys are incredible. I love it. I became more of a Brit, rock fan than I did American music. And I think a lot of Americans are that way.
Yeah. Although actually, I think for me, there's like different things I got from a lot of the American bands. Although I was going to say Mahavishnu Orchestra, but then that's John McLaughlin, who's from Britain. But, but with American musicians. I went through a big period of listening to a lot of soul music and bands like Earth, Wind and Fire. Especially when punk came along and kind of prog just stopped. I actually, after I left college, I started a progressive rock band in the early 80s. And we rehearsed every week, playing music that we were writing that sounded a bit kind of like Yes or Hatfield in the North, kind of Canterbury scene stuff.
Exactly.
So we rehearsed for a year and then tried to get gigs, and no one would book us. There were no gigs of that kind of music at the time. So I ended up listening to a lot of soul music and got to play with a soul band with a saxophone player called Snake Davis, and really got into the whole funk and jazz rock scene and played with some jazz rock people. And certainly there were some amazing jazz rock musicians in America at the time. So whereas maybe the prog thing was more of an English thing, certainly the virtuoso kind of jazz rock and the feel of soul and funk was definitely a big American thing that also influenced me.
Exactly. We were talking about Baltimore, a band, an underrated band that did some prog music that got very famous in Baltimore was Crack the Sky. I don't know if you know that band or not.
Yes, I do. Yes. Yeah. Sharon, my wife, introduced me to them.
Yep. Very big in Baltimore.
In fact, I think they played a gig just up the road, very like last month or something, but we couldn't get to it.
Yeah.
But we saw a bit of it. Someone posted a video online.
Yeah, they
But
play Ram's Head a lot in
yes,
Annapolis.
yeah,
Yeah. I was
yeah.
actually a top 40 DJ back in the late 70s in Annapolis.
Oh,
And
right. Excellent.
WNEV is now owned by Pat Sajak
Right.
in Annapolis.
Ah.
Uh, so that's all my stomping grounds over there.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I love about, yeah, I mean, living here, there's just some fantastic radio shows from actually WTMZ
Mm-hmm.
in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And there's some really fantastic new music being recorded and played, in not really in any particular genre.
Right.
Kind of, I can hear influences of prog and influences of
Mm-hmm.
like 70s pop and stuff, and influences of like 80s electric. But yeah, we're always listening to the radio to hear new stuff.
Oh,
Um,
Baltimore is a great music town,
mm.
especially, and I'm going to interview him in about 10 days. Ian Anderson and Jethro Tull. Tull
Ah,
was huge in Baltimore. Oh my God.
ah, yes, yeah, yeah.
Back to your album, Infinitude, Region of the Stars, beautiful orchestral piece. The violins, is that Julie Cameron Hall on violin and Frank Van Essen? Are they both on the track or?
Julie's not on that track. She's on Seagazer.
Okay.
But so yeah, that track. Well, Frank Van Essen and myself played together for years and years
Right.
in Iona. And the amazing thing about Frank is he's an amazing rock drummer. He plays drums on the new album, but he's also an incredible improvising virtuoso violinist, which is really odd. You know, I remember on Iona gigs, sometimes he'd be like thrashing congas with his bare hands, which whenever I tried to do it, like my hands just swelled up. But then he'd pick up the violin and play incredible, beautiful violin. So he's a really unique musician. But when we were in Iona, we spent a lot of time just improvising together, and also on gigs. There'd always be a time where we'd do something completely improvised, either based around the theme from one of the Iona songs or just something completely new. So Infinitude, that was originally an improvisation that we did. That was one of the earliest tracks from the album because we did that in 2018 when I was over at his studio, and we just spent a day improvising and recording what came out. Some of which came out on an album that he released called Meditations of a Sound Mind, which is really fantastic. And this one piece, which later became Infinitude, Region of the Stars on my album, it was one we hadn't used, but I really wanted to use it on one of my albums. So what you hear on the album is basically the whole improvisation. I just took about a minute and a half out to make it a bit shorter. But then all the keyboard parts that I played live, I orchestrated them and produced the score. And then Frank multi-layered, because one of the things he does is do multi-layering of strings to create this big symphonic sound. So he plays each part on, I think he's got about 5 different violins and about 3 different violas. So he multi-layered all the violin and viola parts. And then we got a cellist in called Jonas Pap from the Netherlands, who's a fantastic player. And he multi-layered the low strings. And then I added some sampled kind of basses just to fill in a bit.
Well, I'm going to say that's the best track on the album.
Yeah, I was really thrilled with how it came out. Yeah. So, and then what you hear, there's like the solo violin is what Frank played originally.
Beautiful.
He did fix a couple of phrases, but pretty much that was how it was.
You know, the track is surreal and it's holy. I don't know why, but I think it's holy. It's just, you know, it's so powerful. The track. I don't know if your background in Christianity came into this song or
yeah, in a way it did, because I remember when we did that session and recorded, like I think we spent like 3 or 4 hours just playing and recording stuff. We kind of prayed beforehand and just tried to get into a meditative mind, kind of state of mind,
Huh.
and just play and not really think too much about what was coming out, but just try and react to each other's playing as well. And one of the things about Frank is, like, I'll kind of throw these really complex chords at him, and he'll be able to just follow me and play the right notes, and it's really quite amazing.
My Christianity came out in this song. I mean it. It just, yeah. I thought about God and church, and I mean, there wasn't any, signs there in the lyrics that it was definitely a song about Christianity or anything. But I just had the feeling. It just came out of me. It was,
yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things that I just love about music is that it can kind of, for me, kind of connect the physical and the spiritual side.
Yeah.
And sometimes when our kind of spiritual side is feeling kind of turned off or not there, you can listen to an incredible piece of music and suddenly, you kind of feel that there's something more than just the physical world.
Prog music belongs in church. It really does.
It's really funny you should say that, because Sharon and I went to see Neil Morse's band just on Thursday night in Baltimore.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, and particularly they did this encore of a whole load of. They did the new album he's just done,
which I love.
Yeah, it's great. And they did about a half an hour encore of various tunes from the previous couple of albums, and at the end of it, Sharon said, it's just like Prog Church. It felt like Prog Church. And it was amazing, just the power of the music. It kind of takes you away from this being like a band on stage and an audience. It's like a shared experience. And for me, that's what music does, is connect people. And that's really what I try and achieve with what I write, is to just connect people to each other and to something greater, hopefully.
Oh, I agree. It was very, very powerful, man. I loved it. Finishing the rest of the songs on the album, To the Far Away, the title track, of course, beautiful instrumental, great tune. Speed Your Journey, very Prog.
Yes. Yeah, I forget. It was, Sally and well, they were all cursing me when I sent them the demo of that, particularly Sally, because it's in. I came up with this riff and on the keyboard, which I really liked, on a kind of organ marimba sound layer, and it was only later when I realized, was trying to figure it out, that I realized it was kind of in something like. What was it? Something. It turned out to be like 17/16 or something like 17. A really odd time signature. So it was almost like 4/4, but there was like a bit added on, which tripped everyone up when they were trying to learn how to play it. But eventually everyone got it, and I think it came out great. And the way Sally's vocal floats over this complex rhythm section is great. But she wasn't very happy.
That's funny. Well, the track Fells Point, I mean, of course, that's a historic Baltimore neighborhood. Was that the intention, or not really?
Yes,
it is. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, vaguely the story is that we start off the lovers being separated, and then at the end is the reunion on this side of the pond, and so Baltimore's got a great harbor, and Fells Point is kind of this historic area. So I thought that was a nice title for the kind of homecoming, hopeful part of the album. But interestingly, it also felt quite familiar to me, because in 2017, I was working with the Strawbs, and we were doing an album called The Ferryman's Curse.
Yep.
And we were recording on at a studio, Chris Tangaridi's studio, which is on the south coast of England. And it's very close to a place called Deal, which is another historic port. And I was staying at a friend's house there for a few weeks. And the one of the house I was staying in was like this really old house from the 1700s with cobbled streets and really steep stairs. And when I got to the first time I went to Baltimore and saw Fells Point, it was really bizarre because it looked very similar to Deal in England. The whole architecture and everything, like 3-story buildings with hooks for cranes and the cobbled streets. Yeah, I'd never seen anywhere in America that looked like that. So it felt very, very familiar. So the idea of that being like the homecoming part of the album seemed very appropriate.
Then you go to DC and it feels French because of Lafont. Lafont designed the whole city there in DC.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. And you end the album with Something Astonishing and the ocean at the end.
Yes. Well, and also the sound effects on the album. I wanted to have a few sound effects that reflected my experience during the lockdown. So right. Every day, like for the 8 months I was separated from Sharon, 8.5 months, I was going out walking. I live on a very small country lane, which is a dead end. So there's no traffic really goes past, apart from a few horses and the occasional tractor. But you get geese flying over and other interesting birds and stuff. So I wanted to incorporate some of the sounds I was listening to during the lockdown into some of the tracks. So, like for example, at the beginning of Speed Your Journey, there's the sound of some wild geese flying over, which I actually recorded on my iPhone. I could see them coming like about half a mile away, and thought, "Oh, I've got to record this." And they went directly over my head, which was great. And the sound of the ocean I recorded in a place in North Wales called Boyle. And when I was there playing a gig with Strawbs, so that's kind of really part of the Atlantic Ocean looking west towards the USA. So I wanted to use the sound that I recorded there on an iPad at the beginning and the end of the album, because it felt like, again, that we were talking about the separation by the Atlantic Ocean. So it seemed very appropriate to use that sound.
Well, the album is wonderful. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it.
Excellent.
I loved it. It's a great album. Not one boring track on the whole album. Very intricate, beautiful music, incredible musicians. I mean, love it.
Yeah, I have to give a shout out also to my friend Troy Donackley, who plays uilleann pipes and low and high whistles and does a bit of vocal on one track.
Right.
Yeah, we've been friends for since the beginning of Iona, more than 30 years. He now plays in a band called Nightwish.
Nightwish, sure.
Yeah, they're huge on the kind of prog metal, symphonic metal scene. When we were in Iona in the early days, we discovered that if we played melodies in unison with him playing the Irish pipes, uilleann pipes, and me playing electric guitar, it just sounded glorious.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have a bit of that sound, since it kind of was our signature sound on the album. So you hear a bit of that, I think on Speed Your Journey and in one or two other places. But his playing is fantastic.
It's hard to narrow you down with just one band because you're associated with so many. And are you going on tour now with Lifesigns?
Very soon in April.
Yes. In the UK, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we released a new album. I joined the band after they'd done one album, and I guested on the second album, Cardington. And then John asked me to join soon after that, playing mainly guitar, but I do play keyboards live as well.
You're very much in demand.
Which is I'd never imagined I would be at this age, but it's great. Yeah.
And you've got Cruise to the Edges in May, I think, May 2nd through the 7th.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm playing on that with Lifesigns, but I'm also playing on that with Fernando Perdomo's Out to Sea band. And then a great singer from Argentina called Gabriel Agudo, who sings with Steve Rothery's band.
Yes.
Yeah, Gabriel's great. Actually, I did an album, one of the lockdown albums I did with him. I got him to sing on, and it was great, except that he's got a really thick Spanish kind of Argentinian accent. So some of the pronunciations of his words we had to redo slightly, but his voice is great. It's such an emotional voice. So I'm looking forward to playing with him, and that's kind of an all-star band in a way, 'cause it's got Bill Hubauer from Neil Morse's band, Fernando as well playing guitar, and Joe Cass, who plays in probably the best Yes tribute band I've heard.
Yeah.
Total Mass Retain.
You talked about Steve Rothery. Marillion's new album is excellent. It's really good.
I've not heard that yet.
Yeah, very good. I reviewed it with Steve not too long ago. He's a good guy too. Another good guy. I love that.
Yeah, so I've only met him very briefly. Although I actually back in the 90s, I did several albums at Fish's studio in Scotland. Because we mixed 2 Iona albums there, and another project I was working on, we recorded there. So that was interesting. He's quite a character.
Yeah, he is. Going back before you got famous, you were in a lot of jazz fusion bands, right? Plan B, Sound Effects. I mean, you were in a lot of bands back in the day. The Suspicions. A lot of jazz fusion back in the day, huh?
Yeah, well, probably most notably with Gary Boyle, who's a fantastic guitarist. We're still going. I think he was 80 and fairly recently. But Gary was in a great band called Isotope in the 70s, who were kind of the English equivalent of the Mahavishnu Orchestra. I remember seeing them on the old Grey Whistle Test, and thinking that he was fantastic. And then, as it turned out, when I got to Leeds Music College, he often came in because he actually went to Leeds Music College back in the 60s, one of the kind of first people there. And he used to come in and do kind of master classes and gigs. So soon after college, I got to play keyboards with him for a few years. But I think it was when there was no interest in prog, and also through doing jazz at college, I really got into jazz fusion in a big way.
You know, I'm friends with Billy Cobham.
Oh yes,
and Billy puts out some amazing albums, but that jazz fusion thing is just not popular. And jazz and that whole genre is just, it's got its fans, of course, but it's not out there, and it's a shame because the music is incredible,
Yes, yeah, I remember we had a gig with Gary Boyle in Hamburg once, and we were supposed to be doing 2 nights at this club, the Logo Club.
Right.
The promoter came to us like a really short notice, like a couple of days before, and said, we'll have to cancel the second gig because I've got the opportunity of doing a Billy Cobham masterclass. So sorry about the gig, but you can come. you can all come to the masterclass for free, and then go out to dinner with Billy afterwards. So which we did, and it was great. He was incredible.
Oh, you got to get him on one of your albums for sure.
Yeah. Oh wow, that would be a dream.
He'll do it. I'm sure he'll do it.
Ah, well, that's
I can give you his contact information if you need.
Yeah. Mahavishnu Orchestra were just a huge influence on. Loved their music and what he did subsequently as well.
I interviewed John McLaughlin, and for some reason I thought he was going to be a very serious guy, and but he was a very fun personality. I had a lot of fun with John. Yeah. You just never know.
No, he did look very serious on those Mahavishnu Orchestra concerts when he was into all the Indian and the incidental meditation stuff.
Exactly. I want to mention, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her last name. Joanne, is it Howe? Is that how you pronounce it? Howe. Yeah. That's a great story right there. I mean, she studied to be a doctor. She became a doctor and then gave it up. She was a junior doctor at Belfast City Hospital. I guess she worked about 6 months or so in the hospital, and then she took ill. She got out of it, became a full-time musician and a singer, I guess. She was with your band for a very long time. How's Joanne doing nowadays? What is she doing?
Okay, I think she's just released a new solo album
Okay.
called The Map Project Part 2, which is obviously part 2 of an ongoing series of albums. Yeah, it was interesting. I first got to meet her back in 1986 when I was working with a singer-songwriter called Adrian Snell, and he'd been actually at some kind of retreat for musicians and songwriters in Denmark, and Joanne had gone along to that and given Adrian a tape, because Adrian was quite well known at the time. And Adrian, I think he played me some of the tape, and I was working with Adrian on an album, and we were looking for a singer, female singer for a particular song. And Adrian played me this tape of Joanne's and suggested we get her to sing on this. And she came in and beautiful voice. So immediately we thought, this is great. And then straight after that, we did a tour in Europe. And so Joanne did the support slot and then also came on to do singing her own songs, and then came on to do the song from the album we'd just done. Yeah, and we got on very well. And so when a couple of years after that, when we were thinking of forming Iona, Joanne was the first person we thought of, not only because of her great voice, but because she was also a great keyboard player and could play guitar. And we wanted to have someone who was an instrumentalist as well as a singer.
Well, I didn't realize this, but Iona was the Europe's best-selling contemporary Christian band.
Very possibly for a while, yes. Yeah, we sold a lot of albums. Yeah, and but I think the thing was we crossed a lot of barriers as genres, and it wasn't kind of limited to just playing kind of churches or anything. We played regular venues, and the whole idea of the band was to break down barriers. So Joanne, we were actually, myself and Dave Fitzgerald, who formed Iona, we were on the island of Iona when we went to visit there when we were thinking of getting the project together, with a small west island off the west coast of Scotland. And we sent Joanne a postcard and had a Celtic cross on it from the island, which is in the 8th century or something. And when she got it, she'd just been away somewhere and just got back and fell asleep and had this dream about this landscape and this Celtic cross. And when she woke up, she wrote the song Iona, which was one of the songs off the first album. But it came to at the time, she'd been working as a doctor, and all her family were medical, so it was kind of expected that's what she'd do. But the time she was working in Belfast, it was the time of the Troubles, and a lot of the people she was seeing were victims of the IRA who had been shot in their kneecaps. So it's horrendous.
Oh my God.
Yeah, horrendous injuries.
Is that what they did? They shoot you in the kneecaps?
Yeah, like anyone who they thought was a kind of traitor.
Oh my God.
It's horrible. So I think it was fairly traumatic for her, and she just felt that that's not what she wanted to do.
Heck no.
So I think Iona it gave her the chance to kind of realize that she could actually be a singer rather than something else.
I love the way Christian music has developed. I mean, you got Christian rock, you got Christian prog rock. I love it. It's incredible because the lyrics are so beautiful.
Yes.
And even the band Kansas, I mean, their lyrical content was very Christianity, and
yes, yeah. Well, I think that's one. That's one of the things I like about progressive rock music is I think it often comes from a kind of spiritual searching point of view.
It does.
The lyrics, they're not just lyrics about love songs, which is fine, obviously, but there's a deeper kind of wanting to find out more about the meaning of life. And
exactly. Yeah.
So in a way, kind of Christian prog makes sense.
It does make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, probably the opposite as well.
Yeah.
Christian, satanic or whatever. I mean,
Oh, no.
make prog or whatever. Going the other way.
Well, we now know that Ozzy Osbourne's Christian.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and all those music is not about the devil. It's the opposite.
Oh.
So
yeah, I know Alice Cooper.
He's a Christian.
Yeah, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I've interviewed a lot of guys that are now found their Christian faith. Of course, Lou Gramm of Foreigner.
Yes.
Christian bands like Petra. Very powerful Christian bands.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. It's wonderful. It really is. I got to talk about the Strawbs. I had David on the show, David Cousins. How's he doing? I heard he had some issues with his health. Is he doing better?
So yeah, actually I haven't heard from him from a few months, for a
really?
couple of, but he so in December he announced that he wasn't going to be able to do any more live gigs for the foreseeable future.
That's a shame.
He has had a lot of health issues. He had a hip, not hip replacement, a knee replacement last year. But he's also had a few of the issues that have been ongoing. So, I mean, we're all getting older, and I think his priority has to be his health, certainly at this time.
Yeah.
So he's going to concentrate on writing songs, which he's brilliant at. Right. So I'm hoping there'll be another Strawbs album, coming out at some point. I mean, the last one was done. Settlement was done during the lockdown.
Right.
We didn't meet up, but we did do one gig that last September, which was the first one for 2 years, in front of a big audience at a festival. So that was, even if that turns out to be the last Strawbs gig, that was a really good one to go out on. So we'll have to see how he is in maybe a year's time and that.
Yeah, we talked about, you guys were doing a gig at some theater. Was it Ohio or something like that? I forgot where it was now. You did I think it was a live video or something that you guys were doing. Do you remember?
Could be Rosfest.
No, it wasn't Rosfest. It was at a theater.
I
forgot the name of the theater. Oh well, it'll come to me.
Yeah, it could have been before my time, possibly.
Yeah. My favorite song of all time, top 5 songs of all time, "Burning for Me." What a beautiful tune that is.
Yeah. I mean, Dave's written some really fantastic songs. I mean, Hero and Heroine is my favorite.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's very, very proggy, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of combines some of the folk elements as well from Dave's earlier days.
Yep.
Ghosts is a great
Ghost
track
as well.
Yeah. Actually, one of my favorites is So Close and Yet So Far Away, which is it's actually just under 3 minutes long, but it's like the perfect song because it's got everything. It's got great chord changes. It's got a great emotional message, and there's like not a second wasted in that. So it's a really fantastic example of a song that comes to the point very quickly and doesn't have any excess in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do we know what the future of the Strawbs is at this point, or not? Not really. Day by day.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, we were due to be doing a lot of gigs this year. Tour in June and Cambridge Rock Festival, and Dave, Chaz, and Dave Lambert all do they do the acoustic Strawbs as well. So for the time being, those have all been cancelled, the shows for this year. So we'll just have to see, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave, here's your final question. I ask everybody this question. I get some interesting answers. If you had a Field of Dreams wish, like the movie, to perform, collaborate with anyone from the past or present, who would that be?
Oh, wow. That's a very interesting question, actually. I mean, there's loads of people I'd love to see. I'd love to have seen Hendrix live. Possibly
Could you play with Hendrix?
maybe keyboards. I wouldn't want to get the guitar out. Yeah. I mean, some of my classical music heroes like Bach,
Right.
and Debussy. I just love Claude Debussy's music. I'd love my favorite time to have lived, I think, would have been in Paris in the 1880s or 1890s, because I'm also a big fan of art and studied art and art history, and I loved the whole Impressionist movement. Mm-hmm. So all of the painters like Monet and Cézanne.
Oh, I love Monet.
But what was nice about that period is the music really was like a parallel, reflected what was going on in art. Like Debussy's music was very, it kind of had a vagueness and an ethereal quality to it, similar to the art. So definitely I would have loved to have lived through that and met people like Claude Debussy. And I've been to Monet's house, which was fantastic, in the gardens at Giverny. Very inspirational. Mm-hmm. But if you were asking maybe a more contemporary musician, gosh, maybe someone like Eric Johnson.
Eric Johnson, really?
Yeah, I love his playing, and I think it would be interesting collaborating if I was playing keyboards and seeing what we could come up with, because he's a tremendous musician. But and I think someone who maybe would be open to kind of exploring different harmonic idioms and things like that. But there are so many. Many.
I like to see you playing guitar with Rick Wakeman.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That would be good. Yeah.
That'd be a nice combination.
Yes. I've met Rick several times. Yeah.
He's a funny guy.
Yeah. He wanted to sign Iona to his record label back in
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We met up. He came to our house and we went out for a meal, and it didn't work out because we had a contract with another company, unfortunately, that we couldn't get out of. But yeah. So then my sister interviewed him. My sister was she had a radio program called Real Lives, which she would interview celebrities and just talk about their lives. And she interviewed Rick on that at one point.
Your sister was quite famous.
She was more famous than me. Yeah. No, she was a local radio celebrity up until she died. Yeah.
Oh, I would have loved to seen her like on YouTube or something, see all
well, she died in 1999, so that yeah. Actually, my brother-in-law is just digitizing a lot of her recordings.
Yeah.
There's loads of stuff of her singing on cassette, and she had a fantastic voice in the kind of really powerful blues rock, Janis Joplin type way about her.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to hook up with Billy Cobham or maybe Annie Haslam, I talk to Annie from time to time.
Yeah. In fact, I met Annie at the Strawbs 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
Show weekend that we did in 2019, because she was a guest.
That's right.
I did the orchestration. We had a full orchestra for a track that she sang on, which I forget. It was off the it was like a space kind of album that she did in collaboration with Dave Cousins, Intergalactic Touring Band.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a track from that album.
Right.
Yeah, so there was, I think it was originally orchestrated, but they didn't. There was like a really rough pencil written version of the score that most of it you couldn't read anymore. So I had to kind of recreate it and reorchestrate it for that. But yeah, so I met her and played with her once on there.
Very cool.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's a cool lady. She really is.
Yeah. Great painter as well.
Yes, she is. She's incredible. I just want to mention some of the famous people from Baltimore on the rock side. Frank Zappa was born in Baltimore.
Yes. Yeah. Sharon's.
We
got him. Yeah.
Rick Osick from the Cars. Also was born in Baltimore. Yeah, there's a huge list of
Yeah, I think
yeah.
apparently Sharon was saying David Byrne lived here for a while.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I can't believe you're in Baltimore. I mean, that blows me away. I still
Yeah.
have family there too.
Oh wow.
They're
Yeah.
all near the Towson area, probably very close to you. My cousin Karen works for 911 in Baltimore County.
Oh right.
So
I'll
if
have to
you
give her
ever
a ring sometime.
yeah, give her a call. She worked for 911. She's been there for years.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Dave, I want to thank you so much, man, for being on the show today. The new album is incredible.
Thank you.
Good luck with it. I hope you sell millions and millions of copies. We hope to see you in Florida again, one day soon. I know you're in the UK a lot.
Yeah, actually, hopefully we'll be in Florida. We're planning a Life Science tour for 2023 next year, and it's going to start off in Florida.
Really? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, we're planning. Some friends of ours do something called Prog on the Ranch, which is like a small festival.
Beautiful.
And so the plan is to do like if we can get all the visas sorted out, which we will, to do like a Life Science weekend.
That'd be great.
Do various kind of offshoots and different sets, different lineups, and maybe with a few guests. And then we're going to start the tour in Florida.
Awesome. Well, I'll cover the show when you guys come.
Yes. Yeah. That's going to be hopefully February next year.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. You can purchase To the Far Away. Now it's at www.musicglue.com/Iona. Is this going to be available on Amazon as well? Do you know or no?
Probably. I think it probably is or will be.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're still looking at a US distributor as well.
Right.
I mean, all the albums, we can ship them anywhere in the world, but we're looking at a dedicated US distributor at some point.
You know what I did? I sent my book. I wrote several books, the Rockstar Chronicles, which has a lot of famous, legendary musicians that I've interviewed in it. And one of them is Jim McCarty from the Yardbirds. So I sent Jim the book, but I had it. He lives in France, so I had to go on the French Amazon site. It was in French, so I did my best. I sent it to him. I got it through, but I forgot to unclick the French Amazon site. So my next several purchases went to Jim. He got ink cartridges and all kinds of other stuff.
I hope there was nothing naughty in there.
No. Just office supplies and things like that. I want to mention your official website is www.davebainbridgemusic.com. Also, Lifesigns official website, the Strawbs, www.strawbs.co.uk. Strawbs official website, Iona official website, Facebook, Twitter. You're everywhere. You're with so many bands, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah. I should mention the new DBA album, the one Jeff Downs have just recorded. That's going to be coming out very soon. It's being mastered as we speak.
Oh, awesome!
DBA is kind of Jeff's offshoot with Chris Braid, who's a fantastic producer and singer-songwriter.
We'll have to get Jeff back on the show again to talk about that. Now, you're on the album as well, right?
So we did some gigs just before the pandemic hit, actually, literally February 2020, and then recorded. They asked me to play on Halcyon Hymns, which was the last album, which we recorded in lockdown. And then this is the new album, which I think is going to be called Celestial Songs.
Oh, wonderful!
But yeah, I play guitars and mandolin and bouzouki. I did a brass band arrangement on one track.
Okay.
And a bit of keyboards as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have a keyboard war with Jeff? I mean,
there is a synth solo I did on there actually. Well, Chris asked me to do it. I thought, are you sure? Because you've got Jeff. But he said, yeah. And it's really a band thing, really. Everyone contributes different things. And So it's a really nice vibe. It's not just like playing as a session musician, but it does feel, even though we haven't really played much live, but hope to, once Jeff's not so busy with Yes and Asia.
Yeah. And of course, his beginnings with the Buggles.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
Way back then. He's changed a lot, hasn't he, appearance-wise, since the Buggles?
Well, that was a long time ago. Yeah.
I want to thank you again so much. You mentioned R&B before. I'm going to see Gladys Knight tonight here in Sarasota. That'll be fun.
Right.
She's close to 80 now. Can you believe that? Wow. That's amazing. We're all getting so old. I can't take it.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Well, we're maturing.
Yeah. We're getting more intelligent. Hey, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks very much.
All right. My best to you and your family, your new wife, Sharon.
Thanks.
And say hello to everybody in Baltimore for me.
Will do.
Take care. Bye-bye.